So, what's the first thing that happens all over the bloody internet when an awesome movie comes out? Everyone starts bitching! Yay! Anyway, roll the credits and we'll get into this bloody mess. Hello and welcome to another episode of Atomic Vinyl Reviews. And today I'm going to be talking about the critical reception of Godzilla, King of the Monsters. For those of you who don't know, the new Godzilla film just came out just earlier this week, and already the impressions of this film have been so mixed, and it's been causing a huge divide between fans and critics. Everyone's pissed off. The critics are pissed off about the film, fans are pissed off about the critics, and then there are even some fans who are pissed about the film, and it just keeps going back and forth, and it's this whole thing where, usually you expect that the fans and the critics, they don't have the exact same opinion, but you expect that, the critics can enjoy a film for what it actually is most of the time and have like a fair response to it. And you would expect that the fans just wouldn't be whining about it the whole time anyway. But here it's just everything all at once, and it's gone very unchecked and a bit crazy. And I thought I'd make a little video for you guys, just giving you a few, some of my thoughts about this whole situation and all that sort of stuff. I was initially going to talk about this in my full review, which I'm still working on, of Godzilla King of the Monsters, my full, spoiler review of that, but I decided, in retrospective, I don't actually want any of this to carry over into that video and be sort of stuck with the history of what this film, talking about it critically from my point of view. I don't want, all this other opinions and this controversy to be kind of glued to it, because this film means so much more to the fans. It means so much more to the history of the character and the legacy and all of that. Especially, Godzilla films in the West and the whole history of that sort of stuff. So, yeah, that's why I'm making a separate video just about this topic. So yeah, let's begin. So the consensus has been basically that the critical reception of it has been really poor. Like they've been kicking this movie down, and I have no idea why. And this isn't just like, the main place where this erupted is on Rotten Tomatoes, the shitty website where they review movies. And then they give like all of them a score based on like the average scores of a bunch of critics, and then viewers can also score that film, and on that website it's very clear how the opinions differ between the public and the bloody critics here, but it also extends to further reviews by just sort of more mainstream film reviewers in general, as well as even some more Godzilla-oriented reviewers. I think they've been giving this film a fairly hard time, and I completely support being critical of a film. I was very, and I still am very critical of 2014 for a number of reasons. But you've got to be fair when critiquing a movie, and I feel like a lot of these reviews aren't really getting it, you know what I mean? They've been much fairer to much worse films in recent years. And we've seen this kind of thing happen time and time again, especially on Rotten Tomatoes. Like we had lots of examples, like the last season of Doctor Who. The fan rating for that was somewhere like 20, 24, something like that, and it was in like the 90% critic rating, even though that season was garbage. But then, you have the stuff like The Last Jedi, which also had a big sort of differences between those reviews. Recently we had Alita, a bit less of a difference, but still a little bit of a difference there. If you haven't checked out that film, Alita Battle Angel, fantastic film. Probably that and King of the Monsters here are my top two films of the year, actually. And yeah, Venom came out. Like I can see why Venom had a poor critical review, but that movie had some really great elements in there as well. But then we get to King of the Monsters, a film which I think is objectively much better than people are saying. And the general consensus from the critic reviews is that actually some of it's really bizarre. Like I don't know what films they're watching, some of these particular reviews, but the general vibe happens to be that they don't like the human element of the film. Some say that there's not enough human drama and too much monster action. Some say the exact opposite, which is really weird, that there's too much human stuff going on and not enough monster action. And I don't know, man. I found the film extraordinarily balanced. Actually, going in, I went in pretty cold. I didn't hear any. I didn't try and find out anything about people's opinions of the film from press screenings or nothing like that. I went in um, actually with pretty sort of medium low expectations. Like I was waiting to be disappointed potentially by something. I'm like, okay, is something gonna piss me off? Because man, 2014 left a bit of a scar. But I just sat there loving it, and I've seen it multiple times now, and every time I watch it, like, it's a good film. The human aspects are very well balanced with the kaiju stuff. Like, yes, it's schlocky. There's some cheesy stuff in there. Not, it's an American Godzilla movie. That's what this thing is. It's a popcorn entertainment action monster movie. And people are complaining that it's not bloody, I don't know. It's Christopher Nolan's Batman or a Stanley Kubrick film or something like that. I don't know what people are expecting of this thing. Um, I thought it was bloody fantastic. Now, yeah, again, it's good to critique a film, be honest about what can be better, because not every film is perfect, and I'm totally fine with saying yeah, some of the people's motivations and things had issues here, but there's so many positives in this film that genuinely outweigh any of those sort of negatives. For example, we get one of the best characters in this film of any of the Godzilla movies, because Dr. Ishiro Serizawa, played by Ken Watanabe in these films here, his role in this film is pure gold. And unlike Bryan Cranston's character, who honestly, I think from 2014, Bryan Cranston's character, yes, he was so good. He was probably the best character in this whole legendary monsterverse, but he totally feels separate from the films, because his role was really like a little mini movie before the main movie, where it just sort of died, and he didn't really get an influence on it, but didn't participate in it as such. But Ken Watanabe is very integral to the story here, and he basically, spoiler alert, although I'm not going to get into details, through his actions, through his sacrifice, and there's a beautiful, really sad scene when that happens. He basically saves the world, saves Godzilla. And there's just, I'm going to touch on him a lot in my full review of this film. But yeah, him alone as a character totally brings the human element up above average of so many monster films, so many genre films, just in general, cinematically a great character. I thought the entire cast did a really good job. No one seemed really out of place or weird, even though, there were like little weird jokes in there. They seemed to fit really well. They were kind of in that sort of weird genre kind of film. Uh, I know it's kind of like a weird thing to talk about, but like those things reminded me of the best aspects of some of Roland Emmerich's movies. Now, don't get any. I know that could trigger a few Godzilla fans right there. But I do enjoy Independence Day and a couple of things like that, and I do enjoy the '98 film as just a stupid movie on its own, not as a Godzilla movie. And so, just some of those little tiny weird jokes that weren't that great uh, do feel like those films. And that whole like little twist that they did with uh, the main sort of family in this film, and how when you rewatch the beginning of this film and you rewatch the mother and the daughter talking in the very beginning of the film, it has takes on a totally different meaning than when you first see it, and all this clever little stuff that goes in there. I think people don't give this plot enough credit. Most of all, I'm happy that nobody here was boring. Everyone was likable. I mean, this this film had good vibes, really. And considering the amalgamations of other films that in recent years that have gotten fairly generous reviews, and I swear have been objectively worse movies. Like, for example, The Meg recently came out. A lot of these reviewers gave that a much better review. I'm going to be talking about some YouTube reviewers in a second who I know gave The Meg a better review than this film and trashed it. So in particular, I wanted to touch on what was his name? Chris Stuckman's review. Now, this guy is just a YouTube reviewer. He's quite big, just a generic reviewer, so he reviews everything. He claims in his video, this is the thing that bothered me the most, is he claims, like every other sentence, he's like, well, because I'm such a big Godzilla fan, I'm a Godzilla fan, I'm such a huge Godzilla fan. I've watched his other reviews of Godzilla films, like, the recent ones. I think he did Shin Godzilla, the 2014, and the 1998 film. He, like, maybe in his heart of hearts, he thinks he's a Godzilla fan, but I don't know, man. I've spoken to a lot of Godzilla fans. I'm know the community. He does not sound like much of a Godzilla fan, and really hearing him in this review, he totally lost any credibility with me. Um, and that's, I mean, people can have different opinions, and that's fine. And this guy has put out some good stuff, but just the sheer level that he tore this film down so unfairly without even getting it, like that's uh like the review is pure cringe, I swear. So if you want to cringe a bit, you want to rant in the comments, go to the review. The funniest thing too actually is literally every single comment on that review is people telling him he's wrong. Oh my God, it really restored my faith in humanity. So anyway, I watched this review and he gives it a C minus because he does like scoring it in, letter grades. Yeah, he reviewed the Meg as like a B minus, like a whole step above this film. And this, like, I swear, this film is just an incredible experience, whereas the Meg is just like, okay, it. I don't get it. I don't get it, people. Um, but yeah, then after that, what's another review that I can think of off the top of my head? Oh yeah, it was Jeremy Jans, I think is his name. He's basically because I saw this link. I don't really watch this guy very much. I usually watch Chris Stuckman's stuff, but Chris Stuckman, the thing is, he claims that there's like that he is seen in some of his other videos. Talks about the difference between reviewers and critics, and where like a critic is seen to be somebody who's snobby and critical of everything, whereas a reviewer is just like a fan of movies, just talking about their sort of feelings about the movies. And he says he's that type of person. Um, I think he used to be, but he may have slowly evolved into now one of the snobby critics, because I've been getting more and more sort of dissonance between his reviews and the actual films that he's reviewing and how I perceive them. I don't know, man. But yeah, so what was I saying? All over the place here. Yeah, Jeremy Jans, he's basically a clone of that guy, except for I figured he's usually a little more lighthearted. I don't really watch his stuff, but he's usually a bit more chill. So I'm like, yeah, maybe this guy'll get it, because maybe Chris is just having a bad day, you know, maybe it's just a one-off thing, like, I don't know, maybe somebody assaulted his mother while wearing a Godzilla costume, maybe he has, like, psychological issues when thinking about Godzilla. That ruined his review, who knows? I don't know. I don't know, people. But yeah, then I go to this video, blows my mind, exactly the same thing, if not worse. Like, at least this guy had the decency to admit he's not a Godzilla fan and, you know, didn't really grow up with this stuff. But still, it's like he spent the better part of the review saying why he preferred Godzilla 2014, and I swear every point he made was literally the opposite of making sense. Almost everything he said was wrong. And, like, I know people are entitled to their opinions, but it's like, you couldn't parody this stuff. And again, going in the comments, faith in humanity restored. So the fans of this film are out there. And people do, you know, the actual audiences do have the common sense and decency to, you know, enjoy this movie for what it is. Even though I'm sort of lavishing in this sort of tearing down of the critics tearing down this film, which I think is a valid response, but I don't want to see this as, like, the main message of my video here is actually I don't want, like, have fun with it, say fuck the critics, all that, create memes with all that, it's funny, it's great, but don't let that be the focus here, because we don't get a new Godzilla movie that often. I mean, it's been a bit great in this past couple of years, but remember, this isn't always gonna happen, and it's not, you know, it's still it's still a huge event, it's still years, like, this, to have an American Godzilla movie that's actually good, like, I'd say objectively good on so many levels, and that actually feels this close to being an actual Godzilla movie. Like, you know, people thought it was there with 2014. I don't think it quite was. I think people were just, you know, really wishing that it was, and were just taking what they could get. But now we have something that's like, oh, just so made for the fans. And made to a quality that I swear, you know, anyone that goes into this thing with an open mind will bloody well love it, who, you know, wants to have some fun. So I really want that to be the focus, you know, going around in the community these days. Because, yeah, like I said, this stuff doesn't happen that often. We're not always going to be getting a Godzilla movie every other year. I hope we do, and I hope they're good, but, you know, chances are they're not going to be this good, and it's definitely not going to be this often, and we gotta really enjoy it, and, you know, definitely keep supporting this film. I know people are saying, like, the box office, blah blah blah, this, I make sure you people see it at least 3 times, bring people, blah blah, we gotta make sure this film does good. I appreciate that. However, the reason that I am going to see this film multiple times, I'm actually going to go off to the cinema right after this. It's actually pretty late, but I wanted to go to the session. Here in Brisbane, we have, at South Bank Cinemas, we have, like, the biggest screen in all of this side of Australia, just in my town, the biggest cinema screen in Queensland. So I'm going to go see it on that screen for another time, because I've seen it in some smaller cinemas so far, and yeah, I'm loving this film. I know you people are also loving it, and it's just a great thing. I'm super excited for what comes out next, and yeah, I'm really curious. What do you think about this sort of stuff? Do you think the critics have, you know, fairly judged this film at all? I don't think they have. I really don't think people know how to watch these movies. Like, I don't know what it is about them, but something is just, there's a dissonance between the critical reception of this and, you know, the actual film that I am seeing in front of me. So am I just looking at it in rose-tinted glasses? I mean, granted, I'm wearing contact lenses now, but my actual glasses are probably like opaque red at this point from rose tinting, because I'm that big a Godzilla fan. But I still really think that this film was done well enough that a 40% Rotten Tomatoes critical score is not fair. Doesn't make any sense. Very well balanced film. As a kaiju film, this was uh, this is another point I forgot to make. And the best reviewers know this very clearly. In fact, Chris Stuckman talks about this a lot, which is why I'm so pissed off at his review, because he totally just did not do this at all. But he was talking about why he grades his films in different ways. For example, why he would grade The Dark Knight Rises like a dramatic sort of action movie in the same way as like a silly comedy. Like he might grade them both an A+, for example, despite like being completely different genres, and one being like The Dark Knight Rises might be like objectively better and more sort of weighty than and better made than a film like I don't know, what's a really good comedy that came out, Anchorman. I like Anchorman, why not? So like you gotta grade them within their genre and their type of movie. Like if you're gonna put a rate Anchorman, you gotta rate it as a comedy, as a specific type of that comedy. And the same thing applies to kaiju movies. Like you've got to rate them within the genre of being a monster movie, especially one that aims to have this sort of tone. I'm dead convinced that the director knew exactly what he was doing with portraying the cast and the characters in this way, and having the focus on the big fights. And he wanted this to be a spectacle. He wanted this to be fun. And the things that that he wanted his films to do, it did. It's just for some reason that shrugs people the wrong way when they're trying to be all critical about this stuff. But yeah, my phone's bleeping over there for whatever reason, so I guess I better. It's a good sign that I should end this video here. So with that in mind, yeah, please let me know what you think about this whole thing. How, yeah, because, are you seeing the same sort of thing that I'm seeing with this? Are you agreeing with the fans, the critics? How fair do you think it is to really nitpick a movie of this kind? It's like, I mean, what are people expecting? This is a movie called Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and you see the trailers, you know what to expect. I don't know, man. I don't know. Anyway, with that, may all your vinyl be irradiated vinyl. Over and